Right now on this planet, there are things that we can fix. There are people. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this very special Generation UCAN webinar. Hope everyone liked the UCAN song. That's Jesse Rubin singing his song We Can. We really love that one. Wanted to share it all with you. My name is Varun Shriram. I'm your host tonight. Coming to you live from New York City, joined by Seth Bronheim, our registered dietitian. Seth, how are you doing tonight?
Fantastic, Varun.
Seth joining us from the Heartland, Kansas, or Kansas City, I should say, and want to thank everybody that's joining us from all around the country and actually all around the world tonight. So we've got a great audience, and we're excited to chat about a variety of things. So just a couple logistical things as we go. At any point, if you all want to ask us any questions, there's a question function in the webinar applet, and feel free to type away and ask us anything that you want to know, any topic that you want us to cover. This is really intended to help you all with your use of UCAN. So whatever people want us to talk about, we'll tailor the discussion in that direction. And for anyone who'd like to share their feedback too about how they've been using UCAN, we are able to bring you on. We'll unmute you. You can talk directly into your computer. If you're using the phone, we can unmute you as well. So similarly, you can let us know in the chat or let us know through the question function if you'd like to join us, and we'd love to have you on. So want to start this discussion today by touching on a couple or touching on the fundamentals of the way you fuel your body, either for exercise or just for energy throughout the day. And I think that initial piece is going to be important to help us understand the rest of what we're going to be talking about today. So starting out, Seth, there's really two ways that you can fuel your body. And the traditional method that we've used to fuel our body with carbohydrates, it causes certain issues with the carbohydrates that we choose to consume. So with the slide on the screen, what are we seeing here, and what are some of the challenges that we face fueling our body with the traditional carbs?
So a lot of these conventional carbohydrates, like, whether it's even, a fruit like a banana or cereal, quick energy bars, all these calories and sugars are digested rapidly, so they enter your bloodstream very quickly, and you cause your blood sugar levels to rise. And then, your blood sugar goes up, and then, whether you start exercising or whether you start, just throughout the day, using these sugars, is that your body relies on those sugars rather than your own body fat. So when you have these sugars, you spike your blood sugar, and your body says, I got all this sugar in my blood. Stop burning fat right now. Burn the sugar first. So you burn through that sugar real quickly, and that's why when you have something like a cereal for breakfast or you have a quick energy bar before a workout, you might get hungry during the workout because your blood sugar is starting to drop. So it's really important to keep your blood sugar steady, and these carbohydrates cause highs and lows in your energy, which can just cause fatigue and drain throughout the day, because you have ups and then you have downs throughout the day, and your body struggles to recover after your blood sugar starts to drop. And that's why it's so important to manage your blood sugar levels, because so much of managing your blood sugar relates to managing your fatigue.
So blood sugar is something that you're going to hear us talk about throughout this session, and it's really one of the fundamental things to understanding the way your body is fueled, and also, as we get into it, the way that UCAN helps you fuel your body. Seth, you talked about carbohydrates that spike your blood sugar. Your sugar-based sports drinks for sure, your energy gels, your sugar-based energy bars. What are some common foods that people are relying on for energy to fuel themselves for exercise that could also cause this spike in blood sugar that we may not even think about?
So even things like having a half a bagel before a run, having even having certain fruits that, a mango, pineapple, banana, those are just high sugar fruits. And even things that we might think that are healthy, like, let's say, wheat bread or the like, those things get digested rapidly too, and they can spike your blood sugar. So breads, cereals, grains, these kind of things, especially the refined stuff like you'd find in your supermarket, especially in the middle aisles.
So, we talked about two fuels that the body can use, and those two fuels are carbohydrates and fat. Seth, I want you to sort of walk us through this graphic on the screen. It may seem a little overwhelming at first, but I think when you break it down, it'll be very simple to understand the advantages of being able to utilize your own body fat for fuel. So walk us through what we're seeing here.
So the main dilemma someone faces, especially before exercise, is you want energy for that exercise, but you also need to be able to use your stored energy. So even the leanest people I know on earth have thousands of calories of stored fat to use. And that's what you're seeing in the right side here. This is a lean person, might be 150 pounds. They have over 100,000 calories of stored fat to use. And the question is how do I use that fat? Because fat is an incredible fuel source. I'm not sure if most know, but fat actually has double the calories of carbohydrates. So when you break down and burn fat, you're using 9 calories per gram. And whereas stored carbohydrates only have 4 calories per gram. This is very important because, you can, when you're breaking down that fat, you're breaking down your internal fat calories. And we always think about calories as what we consume. But the truth is our best source of calories is our internal fat calories. That means you can, first off, take in less calories during your exercise, maybe a third to half the calories. But when you break down fat, it's a much cleaner fuel source. It's mobilized quickly during exercise, and it's what the body wants to burn. To take a step back, the adaptation to exercise in general is that, the way you go from running 30 minutes to being able to increase your endurance to 60 minutes, to be able to go through a high-intensity strength training workout, is your body adapts to it, and you upregulate mitochondrial enzymes. And these enzymes actually allow your body to mobilize and burn more fat for fuel efficiently and spare your carbohydrates like your stored glycogen. So what you're looking at here is the question is, how do I burn more fat and use less stored carb? And you have two. So to repeat that, you're looking to really burn fat and spare your liver glycogen and muscle glycogen. And the main thing is that we have so much stored fat in our bodies, yet we have limited amounts of our liver glycogen and muscle glycogen. And the reason why sparing your liver glycogen is so important is because you only have 100 grams of it. And your liver glycogen is the only stored fuel that actually can feed your brain. And when that starts to drip because you're burning it for energy, your brain runs into a fuel crisis, because as that starts to get lower, you start, that's when, you can have that brain fatigue or just kind of feel that bonk-like feeling. And you might have all this available fat in your body and even a lot of available energy in your muscle cell. But if that liver glycogen starts to drop tremendously, your brain's going to start to get low, and your energy is going to start to drop a little bit, and if that's what's going to cause that kind of fatigue feeling, especially in the brain. And the other big energy source you have is your muscle glycogen, and that's what's used a lot of the time when you might be biking up a hill, running a sprint, and you want to be able to save that muscle glycogen to use it for when you want to use it most, like that 10-second sprint or that high-intensity bout for 30 seconds. And so the more fatty acids your muscle cell can use because you're using that fat means the less muscle glycogen you use, and that means you're saving that glycogen for the end of a race or a high-intensity bout. And you want to spare that muscle glycogen, because when you start to deplete that muscle glycogen, that's when your muscle cells start to feel low and depleted, and they don't have the adequate energy they need. So that's what you're really seeing here is this energy curve, in that you have so much stored fat to use that you want to be able to tap into it to use it as energy especially during your exercise, because that's what the body wants to burn.
And Seth, you were getting into this, but when you deplete your muscle glycogen, isn't that also a lot of times tied into the production of lactic acid and feeling that burn that a lot of people feel in their legs? I mean, doesn't that have to do with depleting your carbohydrate stores in your body?
Right. So when you're doing that rapid, 30 seconds on the bike where you start to get that lactic acid buildup, that's because you're burning a lot of glucose. And what's interesting is that, fat, when you're using more fat for fuel, there's less lactate buildup because you're not using as much glucose. So the more fat your muscle cells use, the less glucose you use, and the less metabolic byproducts occur, like there's less acid buildup in the legs. And that's really good for, so much of increasing performance is also preventing fatigue. The central fatigue in your brain, as we were discussing earlier, and that peripheral fatigue, that fatigue that can occur in the muscle, which is, it's so important to prevent that fatigue to maintain your performance.
So we did get a little bit sciencey over there, but I think it's pretty critical to understand some of these core concepts as we get into UCAN and how to best use it. And, really to summarize what Seth said very briefly, when you're relying on more stored fat for fuel during exercise, you're just using a energy source that's more plentiful. You're using an energy source that's more powerful. And, I think the obvious thing that you all realize too is if weight loss or improving body composition is a goal during exercise, burning more fat for fuel and burning more fat throughout your workout is obviously going to be beneficial to that end. So, if we take a look at what's going on in the sports nutrition marketplace, a lot of your early sports nutrition products, your Gatorades, your Powerades, are using simple sugars as their fuel source. Your fructose, glucose, sucrose, and we already talked about the effects of those on your blood sugar levels. They give you that rapid rush of energy and cause those fluctuations, those highs and lows in blood sugar. What we've recently seen as a common carbohydrate used in a lot of sports nutrition products, your goos, your accelerades, a lot of your endurance products, is a carbohydrate called maltodextrin, which is a complex carbohydrate. It's a long chain of glucose molecules, but even maltodextrin, while a more effective energy source than simple sugars, still isn't going to last you that long. One serving, one dose may give you 30 to 45 minutes of that energy, but again, it's still going to result in that spike in blood sugar and shortly thereafter a drop in blood sugar and that feeling of a crash, that feeling of fatigue. And the we also discussed when you have that spike in blood sugar, you're not utilizing your stored fat for fuel to as great of an extent as you could be. So with maltodextrin, while it may last a little bit longer than your simple sugars, it's still giving you that spike in blood sugar and preventing you from burning the amount of fat during your workout that you really can be burning. You're not realizing your true fat burning potential. So what's really unique about UCAN and how UCAN represents a fundamental difference in the way you feel your body, it really all started with the kid you see here on the screen. And for those of you that um, don't know what's or who've used UCAN but didn't really make the connection. What's really key about UCAN and what's really unique about UCAN is our carbohydrate, which we call superstarch. And superstarch is something fundamentally different than any other carbohydrate that exists in our current sports nutrition products. But superstarch has very unique origins, and the origins really began with Jonah, who's the son of one of our co-founders, who you're looking at on the screen. And Jonah has a very rare blood sugar disease called glycogen storage disease. Seth, what is glycogen storage disease, and how does it affect Jonah?
So glycogen storage disease is a disease where these kids, these children, babies, can't convert their liver glycogen to glucose. So they have no way of stabilizing their blood sugar without getting fed. And to just give from some perspective, the way we sleep throughout the night or go long periods of time without meals is our livers at night, for example, they release 6 to 8 grams of glucose per hour to keep our blood sugar steady. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, we're not waking up with low blood sugar and feeling dizzy, the way some type 1 diabetics might feel, or even people who just have any blood sugar issues. So kids with this disease have a genetic defect where they can't convert liver glycogen to glucose. So before the 70s, they simply couldn't survive infancy. Then later in the 70s, it was discovered that plain cornstarch would be able to convert to glucose outside of the liver and give just enough energy to stabilize their blood sugar for short periods of time. So that's why it had to be taken 10 to 12 times a day and 2 to 3 times a night. And Wendy, who's Jonah's mother, she was waking up 2 or 3 times a night feeding Jonah plain cornstarch. For all the stress of multiple alarm clocks and the threat of hypoglycemia, she looked for a better way. And now Jonah takes a dose of superstarch, and now he sleeps throughout the night. And that was the first way UCAN was initially used. Our first customers were these 2-year-old babies.
So with superstarch, the intent was to provide a very steady release of glucose that would keep these kids with steady blood sugar throughout the night, like Seth mentioned, so they could sleep at night. And Seth, I think it's important to define what exactly superstarch is. What is superstarch? What's it made of, and what is it that makes it very unique?
So when we were talking about that cornstarch, our starting ingredient is non-GMO ground up corn. And then there's a heat moisture process, slightly similar to the way oatmeal is made, that slows the hydrolysis and breakdown of the starch. So all of it doesn't rapidly enter your bloodstream, but it slowly and steadily releases out of your intestine into your bloodstream, stabilizing your blood sugar and energy for long periods of time. There's no enzymes and there's no chemicals. It's an all natural carbohydrate because we discussed earlier, our first customers were these 2-year-old babies. And what's so interesting is that the top carbohydrate researchers in the world were looking at the best carbohydrate to stabilize blood glucose longest in these young kids. And for 8 years, they were looking at all different types of barleys and tapiocas and rices and wheats. But after 8 years of research, it was determined that this type of non-GMO corn, with our heat and moisture process, is what stabilized blood glucose longest. So all carbohydrates were tried to get this effect.
So, there's in sports nutrition, there's a lot of noise on the marketplace. There's a ton of products. We often get the question, how is this non-GMO corn, or how is this, carbohydrate derived from corn any different than your waxy maize starches, or other things you might see that tout stabilizing blood sugar. And like Seth detailed, it's really that heat moisture process, and it's really the fact that there was no intention of sports when superstarch was created. It was really all about something that would stabilize blood sugar, and stable blood sugar means steady energy. It was all about finding a carbohydrate that would provide these kids with steady energy and stable blood sugar throughout the night, so they didn't have these very dangerous lows. So sports was actually an accident. Some of the top sports dietitians in the country, around 2009 or so, when UCAN was released on the market in 2010. But in 2009, when we were doing our research and trying to figure out if this was effective for sports, a lot of the top carbohydrate researchers, some top sports dietitians took a look at the product and told us, or the carbohydrate, excuse me, and its properties, and they were the ones that really told us the implications that this could have for athletes and for general health and fitness. We're going to talk about that here just with a little more science, and then we're definitely going to get into some questions and talk about how to use UCAN. But just a couple more graphs just so you can really see what superstarch is doing in the body. So we talked about this carbohydrate maltodextrin a little bit earlier, and if you look at this graph on your screen, this is our blood sugar curve. So it may sound repetitive, but I really want to drill home this point. Stable blood sugar means steady energy. So the blue line that you're looking at is maltodextrin, and this is if you look at the x-axis, both maltodextrin and superstarch were ingested at the same time, and then we measured the effect on blood sugar. Seth, what are we seeing?
So what you're seeing is that, well, as the maltodextrin carbohydrate, spiked blood sugar within the first 30 minutes, our carbohydrate has a small rise, but then we stabilize, then we also decline steadily. There's never that drop in blood sugar, where fatigue will start to set in. We're really, if you look at our red line, what we're really giving you is little bits of energy over time, perfectly timed for the rate the brain and muscles want to receive the fuel, rather than the carbohydrates like a maltodextrin or in a bagel rushing your bloodstream all at once. And the big thing is that, you can see this blue line. If you have these carbs before you work out, whether it's a quick energy bar or half a bagel or some bread, what you're experiencing, especially during a workout, is your energy declining from high blood sugar to lower levels. You're burning that sugar, and your blood sugar goes up to 160 from 100, and then you experience your blood sugar going down from 160 to 140 to 120 as your body uses that sugar to fuel the workout. And that's what you're experiencing, a decline in energy as you use those sugars. We're giving you stable energy, so there's never a drop in energy during your workout.
So one of the things we discussed earlier when we were talking about utilizing fat for fuel is when you have this spike in blood sugar, you block your ability to burn fat because your body's burning all that excess sugar. And if you look at the next graph, we did a clinical trial at the University of Oklahoma on racing team cyclists, back in 2009, really to figure out whether or not there was something here. Was the super starch carbohydrate going to be beneficial for sports and fitness, or was it not? This was going to determine whether or not we were going to formulate it for sports nutrition. And we're looking at a graph here that's showing insulin levels in the body. Seth, I think it'll be helpful if you would define insulin and the effect that it has on the body, and then talk about what we're seeing in this graph.
So insulin really has two main functions in the body. The first is that this is a storage hormone. When your blood sugar gets rises, insulin comes in uh, and tells your body to bring your blood sugar levels back down. But insulin lingers in the blood for a bit for a period of time, and because you have all that sugar in your blood, insulin tells your fat cells, "Hey, stop breaking down fat." So insulin is a storage hormone that tells your body to stop burning fat and start storing it. And what's so important is to keep your insulin levels low before a workout, so you can actually access your stored fat during the workout. And this study, we had racing team cyclists hooked up to metabolic carts and intravenous blood draws, measuring the insulin level in the body. And as you can see, the maltodextrin, which is the blue, spiked your insulin significantly before and then in the post-workout period. So we had them hooked up to these blood draws for 2.5 hours during a workout, and then we kept them hooked up for the next hour and a half to measure how UCAN affects their body during recovery period. And the most remarkable finding amongst all of our experts, sports dietitians, and top researchers, was that we almost completely flatline the hormone insulin. So we are the only carbohydrate on the earth where 100% of it is absorbed as energy, meaning every gram of this carbohydrate that you pay for becomes energy in the body and blood sugar. Yet because we did not have the insulin reaction, we allow the body to burn significantly more fat throughout and post-exercise. And that's so big because you're keeping insulin low, you're getting the energy your body wants for the brain to function and for your muscles to keep its blood sugar stable, and you're actually allowing the body to burn your own body fat. And that's so key for your energy, as we were discussing in the graphs before.
And we'll take a look at one final graph, and this graph shows really what the theory behind the blood sugar and the insulin rise that we were talking about, what the theory supports. This graph is showing. So, Seth, what are we looking at in this graph?
So this is showing the fat breakdown and burning in the body. You can see that it's allowing your body to burn more fat throughout, but then also post-exercise. And this is key for any of the folks out there who have weight loss goals, because exercise in itself, fat breakdown during a workout is going on at rapid levels, especially because of UCAN's effect before. And your body has all this ability to break down your own fat cells throughout a workout, but it might take a bit of time to fully burn that fat, and that's why during the post-workout period, it's good to keep your blood sugar stable and not, you don't want to have, a pasta or rice or a quick energy bar after workout, because what'll happen is that you'll spike your blood sugar after workout, and your body will say, hey, I got all this sugar in my blood after the workout, all that fat that needed a little bit more time to be burned in the post-workout period, that's just going to recirculate back to my fat cells, and you're going to end up losing that opportunity to fully burn the fat that you could have burned if you kept your blood sugar stable and allowed your body to fully burn it. And this is so big because during an exercise, every gram of fat you burn, you get 3 fatty acids and a glycerol molecule. And those fatty acids just need some time to get burned. And so you're burning a lot of fat during your workout, but you're also breaking down a lot of fat. And if you can keep your blood sugar level steady after a workout, you'll give your body the opportunity to burn that fat. And for those folks looking to lose weight, this might be the difference between losing 5 pounds in a month or simply maintaining your weight. And optimizing fat burning throughout and post-workout is key to really optimizing this metabolic window of optimizing your fat burn.
So, that concludes the science review portion, and appreciate you guys following along. I think that's very important to fundamentally understand what UCAN is doing inside your body, and really to illustrate the fact that while many carbohydrates can claim sustained energy or say they help you regulate your blood sugar, the extent to which UCAN is doing it is extremely unique. So I want to take a gauge of who's in our audience and how frequently you folks have used UCAN before. So we're going to put a poll up on the screen, and go ahead and respond to this poll, and let's see, let's see how many folks are frequent users, how many folks are pretty new users, and then we can sort of tailor our discussion moving forward based on that. So just give everyone a couple more minutes, or excuse me, a couple more seconds to vote in the poll, and then we'll carry on and move forward. And remember, if you folks have any questions, please feel free to ask us to them in the chat. We've already got a few that have come in that we're going to address, but definitely happy to address everyone's questions. We won't get out of here tonight before everyone's question is addressed. So looking forward to that. So to get an idea, we've got most of you here that have voted. Let's just take a look at what we have here in our audience. So we've got about 7% of you folks that have used UCAN more than 10 times, frequent users. We've got about 20% of you folks that have used it 6 to 10 times, a small number that have never used it, and a good majority of you folks that, about 67% that have used it between 1 and 5 times. So yeah, a lot of folks that are sort of just getting started with UCAN, and I'm sure are figuring out different ways to optimize their usage. So, Seth, let's take a quick review of the some of the benefits of UCAN. We talked about the no highs and lows in energy. I think we've talked about that at length. Certainly, it'll be a part of our discussion moving forward. The lack of an insulin response and the ability to burn fat. We've talked about that a lot. One thing that we didn't explicitly mention, but this idea of dual fuel, what Superstarch and UCAN is really allowing you to do is to utilize both fat and carbohydrates as a fuel source throughout your exercise. So you're really getting two fuels, which is very powerful. You can almost think of it as one analogy that some folks like to make is that it's almost like a hybrid car. You're using that gas and that electricity, so it's your body's getting an extra fuel that
Right.
a lot of
The other big thing is that you're able to work out at higher intensities and burn fat at higher intensities. And the old school thought was, and what we used to think was that at higher intensities, the body can only burn carbohydrates because they're quicker acting fuel. But with the use of UCAN, you're getting those carbs to keep your blood sugar steady, so you can work out at higher intensities. But at the same time, at those higher intensities, those fatty acids that you're burning because you're able to burn fat are feeding your muscle cell at higher intensities. And there's even a guy. His name is Lance Leo, and he's out at St. Louis Park in Minnesota at a Lifetime Fitness facility, and he tested himself on the bike, and he was increasing his intensity. He was actually comparing himself to a maltodextrin product called Hammer Heat, and he noticed that as he was increasing in almost anaerobic threshold, where on the bike, that he was burning 53% fat with UCAN versus only 12.7% fat with the maltodextrin Hammer Heat, and he called it unscientific results because that's the big thing is the more fat you can burn at higher intensities means the less carbs you're burning, so you can use those carbs later. The other big thing is that this carbohydrate is extremely easy on the stomach. Large molecules move through your stomach rapidly, whereas small molecules linger in the stomach, can increase stomach pressure, cause gastric distress, and that's why sometimes if you have food before you work out, you might feel a little bloated, or especially if you have a gel or something like that, you might feel that gastric upset. We move through the stomach so quickly, we're not even in your stomach to bother it. All of our digestion and absorption occurs in your intestines. And then we love to say we're a food product because it really is. We're less processed than oatmeal, and it's our starting ingredients that non-GMO corn. And when the New England Patriots buy our product, we just like to say that they use their food budget, the same budget they buy their steaks with, not the budget they buy their supplements with. And of course, we're gluten free. I mean, we have people with very serious celiac disease, lower intestinal distress issues that are thriving on UCAN because of how easy it is on their stomach. People with IBS, Crohn's, colitis, they're all able to get this energy fully absorbed rather than causing problems lower down in their colon.
So let's look at the two versions of UCAN, and then we're going to start ripping through all these questions. I got tons of questions coming in. So there's really two versions of UCAN. You've got your sports drink mix, what you see on your left, your 3 fruit flavors, your cranberry, raspberry, lemonade, and pomegranate blueberry. These all contain 30 grams of our super starch carbohydrate. They have 120 calories per packet, and they also contain electrolytes. And then you have our chocolate and vanilla, which is our protein enhanced drink mix. It's got, again, the same 30 grams of the super starch carb. This one has 220 calories, and the additional 100 calories are coming from the added 13 grams of protein. So the primary difference between the two versions, other than the flavor, is that additional 13 grams of protein. But in terms of the super starch, the unique characteristic, the carbohydrate, it's got the same amount, the 30 grams. So if you're looking at when you could use either version, both of them, because they have the 30 grams of super starch, can be used pre-workout for energy. The distinction that we make with the protein enhanced is we sort of think of it as a pre-workout mini meal. So, if you haven't eaten for a while before a workout, several hours, or you're normally used to having a bagel or something heavier before you exercise, that protein you can to help fill you up. It's not going to make you feel bloated. It's only 13 grams of protein, but that protein is going to help silence that feeling of hunger, and it really works well as like that pre-workout mini meal. Either of them can be used, really, we say midday, but anytime as a healthy snack, just to balance out your blood sugar in the middle of the day. A lot of times the hunger we feel in the middle of the day or the dips in energy are caused by fluctuations in our blood sugar. So UCAN, by keeping your blood sugar stable, is really good just to prevent that mid-afternoon slump at work. And then they can
Yeah,
both be used as the carbohydrate portion of a meal replacement shake. You could blend it with other healthy ingredients. And then, also with the protein also works great for post-workout recovery. Seth, go ahead. What were you going to say?
yeah. The big thing is that when the time to use the protein enhanced drink is especially those morning workouts. That protein is helping curb the hunger in your stomach, while UCAN is helping curb the hunger that occurs in your brain because it's at a constant rate. So there's never that drop in blood sugar, or you don't get that brain hunger. A big thing that we've been working with a lot of personal trainers and dietitians, and they'll have especially people that are teachers or nurses, that can't get a snack, or they just you're going long periods of time without eating. Maybe you're a consultant or a psychologist who has back-to-back clients. UCAN can help keep your blood sugar steady for 3 to 5 hours when you're not exercising. So what one dietitian told me for her clients is she loves them having UCAN so their blood sugar and energy is stable for important times. And that's really important so your blood sugar doesn't drop. You might have, be working from 3:30 to 7:30, maybe some odd hours. You have to have a late dinner, and instead of getting low blood sugar at 5 or 6 o'clock and kind of suffering through it, UCAN will make that easier for you. It'll curb that hunger, keep your blood sugar steady. And then just to also give an idea, we also have a plain version of our product where people add their own protein powder. They might add their own unsweetened almond milk and cinnamon to our plain UCAN, and that's ways to be creative with our plain, because the main thing about our plain UCAN is that you want to mix it with something because it'll taste like the plain starch. And so there's lots of variety here. So that's what I was going to add, Varun.
With the plain UCAN that Seth referenced, the plain UCAN is just the 30 grams of that super starch carbohydrate, nothing else. No electrolytes, no flavor. So just to clarify on that. So Seth, let's get to some questions. So while we're on this topic of protein versus non-protein, Scott asks, Scott says he used Accelerate last year and he used it because of the protein content. For those of you who are familiar with Accelerate, you know that they talk about a 4-to-1 carb to protein ratio. And Seth wants to know, Scott wants to know, what role does protein play in nutrition while exercising? And, to that effect, you can answer that general question, Seth, but also, sort of highlight the difference between using the protein UCAN for exercise versus the non-protein UCAN.
So the main thing is before a workout, if you're someone that's prone to muscle loss, the body can probably burn around 10% of protein calories, but that's also because blood sugar can drop. So the big time people actually burn their own protein stores, the stored protein in their muscles, is when their blood sugar drops. And that's because when your blood sugar starts to drop, your body will break down a mix of stored fuels. They'll break down some of your stored carb and some of your stored, a little bit of your stored fat and some of your stored protein to raise your blood sugar back up. So the big thing is a lot of products add some protein to them because they want to prevent they want to try to stabilize blood sugar. They're taking that fast-acting carb and trying to use some protein to help stabilize the blood sugar. Because UCAN is so unique in that it stabilizes blood sugar on its own, you don't need the added protein. So the time I would use our protein-enhanced version is if it's the first meal of the day, and you're waking up, it's been 8 hours since you've eaten, that protein's good to help curb hunger. But if you're also someone who's prone to muscle loss, it's good to get some protein in the body before you work out. And research shows anywhere from 10 to 15 grams of protein before a workout is good. It's probably better for some of the longer duration workouts. You probably don't need that protein enhanced version for an hour run, which is where the fruit flavored comes into play. But you could some of our fruit flavored versions, if you like that, and you still want the benefits of protein, you can always add half a scoop of plain unflavored protein or some vanilla protein powder. A cran raspberry and a half a scoop of vanilla protein powder has worked very well for those that want to create their own recipes. But just a big thing about protein in general for all the folks listening is that your 24-hour intake of protein is really what's key to keeping your muscle mass adequate and making all the neurotransmitters and enzymes in your body. It's much more about the overall picture of the day, and so this protein is here is that added protein that can help contribute to your overall protein of the day, but it's also at that critical time before your exercise to help prevent that protein breakdown. But our carbohydrate in itself is keeping your blood sugar steady. So because your blood sugar is not dropping, you're helping prevent protein breakdown because you're not having to break down stored proteins to raise your blood sugar back up. So I hope that answers it.
From an energy perspective, Scott, you won't feel any difference between the sports drink mix or the protein enhanced drink mix. So it's really about the factors that Seth talked about. And if you're doing a very long workout and you're somebody that struggles with hunger during a long workout, using the protein UCAN pre-workout is going to help silence that feeling of hunger. So as we start talking and transition into that idea of long workouts, we have several questions about using UCAN for a 100-mile bike ride, using UCAN for a 5-hour half Ironman. So let's get a little bit, Seth, into endurance and some of the usage strategies for UCAN for long endurance events. So to start out, our general rule of thumb is for exercise 2 hours or less, one packet of UCAN should be sufficient to fuel you through that exercise. Now, if you're going for longer than 2 hours, we recommend a serving roughly every 90 minutes. These are very general guidelines. You're going to have to play around with it in your training, but that's what we've seen for most people is what they're doing. Now, if the reason we say a serving every 90 minutes for exercise over 2 hours is because if one packet of UCAN is going to last you for 2 hours, because it's not rapid, it doesn't hit you right away, you want to back time it. So you want to take your next serving 30 minutes before you actually need it. So you allow it, you want to be ahead of yourself when you're fueling. So you allow the carbohydrate to steadily release into your body. So, if you're doing a 4 or 5 hour effort, it's really, you start with that packet of UCAN 30 minutes before, 90 minutes in, you take another serving, at the 3 hour mark, you take another serving. And, if you're using the sports drink mix, which a lot of people will do, that's 360 calories to fuel you for, 4 to 5 hours, which is significantly less than a lot of people are used to taking in. And it's because the calories are so steadily released. It's because they're so efficient. And it's because you're using a lot of your own stored fat to make up that caloric deficit. With Ironman athletes, especially, there's this thought of 250 to 300 calories per hour, maybe even up to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. But that's all based on the traditional method of fueling using fast-acting carbohydrates. Those are all sort of turned upside down when you're fueling with UCAN and you become used to fueling with UCAN. Seth, anything you'd like to add there?
No, I think the main thing is that as you use UCAN more, many notice that they can go longer periods of time, especially during endurance running or distances, because they get better at burning fat, and they also start getting used to the UCAN. And I think the main thing is that for anybody out there who's new to the product, or might be used to consuming sugary drinks or gels during a workout, it does take a little bit of time to transition from using those sugar-based products, because you're so used to a different way of fueling. It might take a week or two or a few different workouts to adapt and get used to using UCAN, which is a different way to fuel the body. And so that's why it's good to wean yourself off of those sugar-based drinks. So you might use UCAN before the workout and every 90 minutes, but you can still bring along a few gels and your sugar-based sports drink, because you just want to use less and less during that 2-week period when you're transitioning. But the best way to start out for any of those folks is just simply have a packet 30 minutes before a workout, or if you do when you're doing a workout, have it pack it 30 minutes before, and try it out for that hour run or hour and a half workout or 2 hour workout um, and see how you feel for a 2 hour period.
One thing that I want to make one distinction that's important to note is when we say take a additional serving of UCAN every 90 minutes, it's not a traditional sports drink that you want to sip on, over the course of 45 minutes to an hour where you're just sort of sipping a little bit at a time. The serving of UCAN is intended to be consumed all at once within about, a 5 to 10 minute period of time. So you basically, every 90 minutes, you want to try to get it all in your system and then allow it to slowly release. So to make that distinction clear, UCAN is your fuel source. It's not your hydration. It's you get all the UCAN in your system, and then if you want hydration, you could sip on just plain water. You could sip on a sugar-free electrolyte mix if you want something to sip on to stay hydrated. Over that 90-minute period in between doses of UCAN. But you want to get all that UCAN in you within a relatively short period of time. Let's see if we can bring Marcus on. Marcus had a question about fueling for a half Ironman, and we have a few other folks that have similar questions to Marcus. So maybe we could let Marcus articulate his question, and this might answer what we're seeing from a lot of people. Marcus, how are you doing tonight? Are you there with us?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
You sure can, Marcus. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Oh, well, let me just talk about my question here. Well, I was talking about the 5 hour half Ironman. One thing about the sugar spike chart that you have, I had a sort of an interesting question. Now, obviously, if you take it 30 minutes before and then you do something, an hour and a half into it and then perhaps at 3 hours, would it make sense in the last 30 minutes to just go for the sugar-based approach? I mean, I'm just asking this hypothetically because at that point, you don't really care, beyond the 30 minutes whether you sort of crash, because in theory, you would have finished by that point. So does it make sense for the first 4.5 hours to use the UCAN approach and then go for the sugar approach? I mean, or that really doesn't make sense?
Great question, Marcus. Seth, go ahead.
So what's interesting, Marcus, is that as you exercise, especially during endurance, fat burning increases tremendously, especially as you're deeper into that Ironman. So, as we talk about how fat's a better fuel source, a lot of people with UCAN are actually finishing stronger than they were when they were using those sugars. That said, having it that late in the game, you are going to, that last half an hour, you are going to avoid the crash per se, but you're going to miss that opportunity to have that powerful amount and maximal amount of fat burning. But you can treat your body like a laboratory, and at a 5 hour run, you can try it out and see how you feel.
Yeah, Marcus, that kick at the end, a lot of it is, I think it's being used to that, even mentally being used to that feeling of a sugar rush at the end. And getting through the end of an Ironman is very much a mental exercise as much as it is a physical exercise. So if taking that gel to give you that kick at the last half an hour is mentally going to make you feel like, hey, I got something in me that's gonna give me that kick, it's perfectly fine. And if you're a pretty lean guy already, you said you were on a low carb diet and a pretty good fat burner in general, and if fat burn isn't your primary goal, and you're just taking that one gel to give you that kick at the end of the race, totally fine. Like Seth said, there's a lot of the science that supports the idea that you can still get that same kick as you become more efficient at burning fat, but it's totally fine to take that gel also at the very end, if you feel like that's what you need. Was that a answer your question? You have anything to follow up to that, or
Oh
did
yeah,
that?
so I think that's great. I mean, I just wanted to make the comment because I'm sure a lot of other triathletes and people in endurance events have tried this approach with this new sort of ketogenic or paleo approach, specifically being low carb, where you essentially try to train yourself with very little sugar or carbohydrates, and then in theory you're burning a higher percentage of fat as you go along. So to the extent that you're very low carb or ketogenic, I suppose that 90 minutes before you have to take another one, I mean, that could even be 2 hours if you were sort of super fat adapted, but, I guess 90 minutes is just a safe bet.
Exactly. And Marcus,
exactly
I think
right.
a big thing is that those that are really good fat burners, they're finishing extremely strong without that gel at the end. And that's because fat's such a great energy source. So, and I think that's kind of, that's sometimes the best time to take advantage of that that fat burning effect is toward the second half of your Ironman.
Thanks a lot, Marcus. Appreciate the question. And if you got anything else, feel free to shoot it to us in the chat. Thank you very much. Seth, Eric wants to know if gluten-free products, so UCAN, like we mentioned, superstarch the carbohydrate, is gluten-free. He wants to know if gluten-free products have the same effect as regular pastas and grains when it comes to spiking insulin.
Do gluten-free products have the same effect as repeat that one more time, Varn?
Sure thing. So he's asking if gluten-free products and have the same effect as pastas and grains. So foods that do contain gluten when it comes to spiking insulin. Is there any effect between spiking insulin and gluten? I guess is his essential is to boil down his question.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that contain gluten, like your wheat products, there was just a big book called The Wheat Belly that was just written about the insulin issues around wheat and the gluten content. But I think we're just getting in the beginning of the research world, measuring the effects of gluten versus gluten free on those things, because there could be added ingredients to something that's gluten free that might spike your blood sugar. There could be added sugars or different ingredients. So I think it would depend, but I would probably look for something that's gluten-free, that's got a lot of fiber in it. I wouldn't use that for an energy source, but that might be something I have at a meal, and that extra fiber will help slow the absorption, so you're not going to have that energy rush, but you're not going to it's not going to be absorbed, but it'll help keep your blood sugar a little bit lower than something that might have no fiber in it and contain gluten.
Let's see if we can bring Raphael on here, and Raphael had an interesting question. Want to see if we can address it with him in person. Raphael, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Raphael, how are you doing tonight?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering if there's any benefit of start drinking UCAN a week out or 2 weeks out before a big race like an Ironman, just to get your body gear up before the race.
Sure. So Seth, I don't know if you caught that. He just wanted to know if there's any benefit to, before a big race like an Ironman, starting to drink UCAN. And the question he had said in the chat was like on a daily basis, have it in the morning as a shake. So to sort of help your body get acclimated with the product. So, what would you say?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely having it before your workouts, and if it's exercise over 2 hours, having it every 90 minutes. But we have so many people making a breakfast shake out of it on recovery days, or if they have if you have a late night workout, let's say it's after work where you're going to exercise from maybe 6 to 8 p.m. at night. Starting your day with stable blood sugar is so key to managing your energy during the day. So by the time your 6 o'clock workout comes around, you're not tired, you're not hungry, and you're ready to go. So I think a big thing is that, people take our plain UCAN and they mix some protein powder in it. I mean, I'm a dietitian, so I love throwing spinach into breakfast shakes. You get the antioxidants in the spinach, and there's extra nutrients and fiber to help slow the absorption further. People add some almond butter, coconut butter, peanut butter to a shake. They add some ice, either unsweetened almond milk or some cinnamon, and they make a breakfast shake that keeps their blood sugar steady throughout the morning. So they manage their hunger and cravings at lunch. Where at lunch you got this feeling that you're eating based on your physical hunger at lunch rather than a low blood sugar feeling. And at 11 o'clock you're not getting that hunger. So so that's really key. I mean, some people have UCAN, as a breakfast shake. Then some, I was speaking to a dietitian last Thursday, and she has a lot of her clients, if they have a 6 o'clock workout, they might have UCAN as part of a breakfast shake, but she has them have it again around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon to help keep their blood sugar steady and avoid that kind of 4 o'clock low. And then they'll have one more dose before their long workout at night. And that's those people that are trying to manage their energy throughout the day. So this person actually was having 3 scoops per day. A scoop in the morning, a scoop at 3 o'clock, and a scoop at right before a 6 o'clock workout. And that was the way a dietitian was using it as a healthier form of carbohydrate to manage energy during the day. So I think you can use it in that type of way. Many people have it as part of a breakfast shake or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on non-workout days. Are even during the day before a nighttime workout. You can always work backwards and have UCAN as before an early morning workout, and then have it as part of a recovery shake as your breakfast shake as well. And then some people find they like to have that 3 o'clock dose, and others feel like they're feeling pretty good and can just make a healthy food choice. So there's
Raphael,
different ways to
yeah, and
go
so
around.
I said, I think the overall point too, Raphael, is to for if you make some dietary changes, then you will find that you get a better effect from UCAN. So you know, really just having steady blood sugar throughout the day, whether you're using UCAN as the tool to help you get there, or it's in the food choices you make. Keeping your blood sugar stable throughout the day, not having those highs and lows in blood sugar, it's going to get your body more used to relying on your fat stores for fuel. And ultimately, that's what's going to help you during an Ironman. So, we've seen people who have changed their diet. I mean, in some extreme cases, get 3.5 or 4 hours out of, just 30 grams of the superstarch carbohydrate. And that's because their bodies become so in tune to utilizing fat as a fuel source. So I think that's the way to think about using UCAN in the context outside of the workout. Use it as a tool, whether, like Seth mentioned, it's in the morning for a breakfast shake, or whether it's in the afternoon. If you're replacing, say, you would maybe have an iced tea or something that's high in sugar, or if you're replacing that with UCAN to stabilize your blood sugar, that's the way to think about using it outside of your event, is as a tool to keep your blood sugar stable and as a tool to get your body used to utilizing fat for fuel. Did that pretty much answer your question, Raphael?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you staying on. Um,
Thank you.
got a lot more questions. Going to bring a couple more folks on. I just wanted to run through a couple quick things. If any folks want to sort of discuss their individual usage further with Seth, I'm going to put his email in the chat. It's ucanrd at ucanco.com. That'll go right to Seth, and he's a great resource to help you tailor your use of UCAN to your individual situation. And then also, as a thank you, we're pushing on an hour now, but like I said, we're still gonna stick around and make sure everyone's questions get answered. But we would like to just offer a discount code to our online store for everybody who's joined us tonight, and that code, which you'll also see here in the chat, is "You Can Learn" for 15% off at our online store. And our online store, it's generationucan.com/store. So if you enter that code in at checkout, you're going to get 15% off. Right now, it's only going to be eligible on the UCAN packets. We also have the canisters. Just working on ramping up our production of those, getting those in much larger stock. So right now, the codes are only eligible on the packets, but UCAN Learn will give you 15% off. Let's see if we can bring Lori on. Lori had a couple questions and also had some experiences to share. So let's see. Lori, are you with us? Lori, are you there?
Yes,
Hey, how's it
yes.
going, Lori? Thanks. Go ahead.
It's going. Yeah, I lost you.
All right. I
Okay.
think we got you. Let's try again.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, fantastic, Lori. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Well, I have a couple of questions, but my question is, as in the past, I've been using it throughout my workouts on a bike ride, just sipping throughout the bike. So if I'm not doing that, what are some suggestions on how to carry that for long bike rides if I'm not mixing it with a full water bottle and on long runs?
Two great questions, Lori. And
So
so first of all, I wanted to just ask you this because we've had some different folks. Primarily the way we recommend using the product is like we've been talking about consuming it in a relatively short period of time. When you've been sipping on it on your bike rides, how have you felt? Have you felt that steady even energy, or have you felt like there's something lacking?
I have to say I've done a couple. I've just started using it. I felt hungry on one of the longer bike rides that I did. I felt like I needed something extra to eat.
Sure. Okay. Okay. But okay, so that was one issue from an energy perspective. Did you feel pretty even, or what was going on there? Or I know you said you just started using
Um,
it.
I've only just started using it, so I guess fairly evenly energy-wise.
Okay. So Seth, what are a couple strategies? So let's sort of address. I think this is going to be very beneficial. Lori's asking questions that we hear all the time. So in terms of just the logistics of mixing it up on a long bike ride, what do you recommend?
I mean, a lot of people, the feedback we get is that they might take a 24-ounce bottle or a bottle that can fit on the bike. They'll take, let's say it's a long bike ride. They'll take 3 packets. They'll do this all before the bike ride. They'll use cold water and some ice, and they'll shake it hard, and they'll have a third of that bottle every 90 minutes,
Okay.
and they'll consume that within a 10 or 15-minute period. And that's been the easiest for people. Just to kind of address running, for example, people might take a fuel belt bottle that's a 10-ounce fuel belt bottle and put 2 packets in there and have 5 ounces every 90 minutes, and that's what a lot of our marathon runners do for longer runs.
Okay.
To make the point to that, which we haven't mentioned yet, the amount of water, if you're using the packets, we recommend 8 to 12 ounces of water per packet, purely based on a taste standpoint. But the amount of water you use, as much or as little as you want, has no effect on the absorption of the product or how it works. So like Seth mentioned, for on the run, for convenience, we have people using a 5-ounce gel flask, mixing it with 2 to 3 ounces of water into a paste, and that just makes it more portable, more convenient to carry. And the consistency will be different, but in terms of the effect, it works the exact same way. So that's how we would suggest using it on a run. You also mentioned the issue of hunger during your longer workout. So there's sort of 2 solutions or 2 things you could try. Number one is you could try using like we talked about in the beginning, you could try using the protein enhanced UCAN. I don't know if you were using the sports drink mix, but you could try certainly using the protein UCAN prior 30 minutes before your workout. So at least you start the workout out with some protein in your system. And then you should definitely experiment with this in your training. But we have a lot of folks who will use the protein every 90 minutes on the bike, or in the middle of training. So there's a small percentage of people who don't tolerate consuming protein, from a GI distress issue, from a stomach standpoint during exercise. So, certainly try it in your training to see whether or not you're one of those folks. But, that's certainly something that can help keep the hunger away if you use the protein UCAN before, and then also are using the protein UCAN during your exercise. But Seth, if Lori was going to go with the sports drink mix and not opt for the protein UCAN, what are some things that she could, snack on, or some other things outside of UCAN that she could consume to help prevent that hunger that would interact well with the effects of UCAN?
Well, I think the first thing with Lori is that I think if you're using a higher dose of UCAN every 90 minutes, because it's all going to be in your intestines dripping into your bloodstream, you're probably going to get a better effect of the UCAN rather than sipping on it. The other thing is that most people who go on long bike rides, I mean, you're going 5 hours without solid food, and it's more of a physical hunger feeling in the stomach rather than a mental hunger, because UCAN's keeping that blood sugar steady. So for those that want to stomach with something, there's 2 things that have worked well. Some people like the Justin's almond butter, which has some protein and fat in it. It's just enough to kind of coat the stomach, quiet down your hunger hormones, and allow you to finish the workout strong. Other people, who are doing a 6-hour bike ride or whatnot, they'll just look for a low sugar bar. That's just going to, again, have some protein and a little bit of fat in it to help, quiet down that hunger. We have people make a UCAN Bites recipe. I'm not sure, maybe Vaughn can post it in the chat, where they take our UCAN and add some walnuts and make their own energy bites out of it, and bring it on for a long ride, and that's worked well too. So until we come out with the bar, there's some low sugar options that you can choose. But some people make their own trail mix. They might just bring a few walnuts and almonds. Other people like to have a low sugar bar. These are that have to be portable to use for a long ride. And I think it all depends. Some people, if they don't eat enough the day before a long ride, they might feel more hungry that day. So it also depends on your overall nutritional intake. Sometimes if you have a lighter meal before, maybe a few hours before, you might be a little bit more hungry. So there's other things that can go on. But feel free to send us any feedback to my email address. I'd love to hear how your your next couple of weeks go as you're trialing the product a little bit more.
So Lori,
Will
we
do.
did
Great.
just post that UCAN Bites recipe, and for everyone else too, I know that Seth, you just mentioned it, and Brian mentioned it in the chat as well. But if you click on that recipe that we just posted in the chat, that's one way that you could make UCAN into into a more solid form, and that could help you out too, in terms of having something solid to snack on during your exercise. And as you'll see, there's some other added ingredients that work well with the UCAN that won't spike your blood sugar. That'll also keep that feeling of hunger away. Lori, did that answer some of your
Great.
questions?
It sure does. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Let's keep plugging along. Let's see who we got next here. We've got let's see. Eric says it seems like a good fat-rich diet would be a great complement to UCAN. Are there any good times to increase good fats in the diet leading up to a race? Seth, what would you say? I certainly, consuming a diet where you're eating a lot of healthy fats and not relying as much on consumption of a lot of carbohydrates is definitely going to be beneficial, overall for health and also to enhance the effect of UCAN. Is there any difference in terms of adding these good fats to your diet, a week or two before a race versus sort of just implementing it into your general diet overall?
I mean, as a dietitian, I just think that having healthy fats in your meals is so important because from a satiety standpoint, from the very healthy fats, things like, walnuts and avocados, and olives, and the healthy fat and fatty fish like salmon and even good tuna. It's just these kind of fats are essential for recovery, for keeping inflammation at low levels, and that's so important, especially during someone who's doing endurance exercise, to have adequate fat intake to help your recovery and be anti-inflammation. And so we even have people who make a breakfast shake. They'll take a packet of our plain UCAN, add their favorite protein powder. And I was talking about adding spinach. We have people that add half an avocado to their breakfast shake. And avocado's got great fiber and fats in it, and it sustains them and keeps their satiety. And it's a great healthy fat to add to your shake in the morning. It's just, these fats are critical for recovery. So it's just to have them in your diet. But leading up to a race, if you're just trying to get some more calories in the week before, it should give you more energy. But it's just good for maintenance, for everyday energy.
Brian's got an interesting question, Seth. He wants to know, how many grams of sugar does it take to spike your blood sugar? What is there any sort of rule of thumb that, if you consume X amount of sugar at once, you're going to see that spike that we were talking about?
Yeah, I like to keep the sugars under 6 grams if you're going to combine anything with UCAN. So, for example, if someone wants to take our cran raspberry and add some fruit to it to make a shake, you might use 3 to 5 strawberries, or you might use a third of a banana. So you keep the sugars under 5 or 6 grams to avoid that rise in blood sugar. But research has shown that as little as 15 grams of sugar can spike blood sugar. Most of the time, in a lot of bars and things, they contain 20 to 25 grams of sugar. So the most important thing is that even 10 grams of sugar will cause that spike of blood sugar. It might not be as high as if you had 30 grams of sugar, but it's still going to cause variations in blood sugar that's not stable. And that's why it's so important to have a slow absorption into the bloodstream.
So, Brian, hopefully that touches on what you were asking. Eric, actually, we talked about this a little bit. Actually, let's see. Eric's got a couple things for us. So let's see if we can actually bring him on. Eric, are you with us?
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, Eric, how's it going tonight? Thanks for all the questions and some great questions. So wanted to get you on to chat.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, thanks. I'm just kind of new to the UCAN a bit, but I want to. Yeah, that's why I was asking about kind of fat. Like I'm trying to move to fat adapted state for my workouts and for my races and stuff like that. I'm kind of diving more into nutrition now than I had before, but so that's why I'm asking those kind of questions, and as well as like I just did a marathon recently, and I didn't bring any UCAN. I had some before, but I didn't have an opportunity to have any like along the course somewhere or something like that. I was just using just what was handed out by the race essentially, and so that's why I was wondering if if ideally I'd like to be able to maintain the state because I felt great for the first part of the race, and I was just wondering if there's if using those carbohydrate or those sugar-rich products negative effects on me while I'm if I'm trying to make use of UCAN throughout the race or just long effort in general.
Great
So
question, Eric. So let's touch on that quickly, or doesn't have to be quickly, but then I also wanted to address the second question you asked, which I thought was fascinating as well. So I would say if we're talking about a marathon, there and Seth, I'm going to let you just speak to the effects of the sugar based products on or on UCAN. But I just wanted to, if we're talking about a marathon, Eric, what a lot of people have found is they'll actually, if they're in a situation like you where they can take the UCAN before but they don't really have the opportunity to consume it during the race, whether it's because you don't like to carry a bottle, or whatever, whatever the reason may be, what some people will do is actually double up the serving of UCAN. So they'll take 2 packets before their marathon. And so if you said you felt pretty good throughout the first half of the race, so let's just conservative estimate, a lot of people tell us that 1 packet of UCAN is going to last them, 8 to 10 miles. For several people, it's enough to carry them through a full half marathon, but let's even go with 8 to 10 miles. If you find that 1 packet lasts you for 8 to 10 miles, doubling up that serving, it's not necessarily going to make it last twice as long, but it'll definitely extend that period of time, which you're going to feel that even energy. So you might go from 8 to 10 miles up to about 13 miles with feeling real nice and even, and not having to take whatever's on the course if you don't want to carry it with you. So that's something to definitely play around with in your training. See what the difference is for you between taking 1 packet versus doubling up the serving. And again, we mentioned this before, but it's important to note, if you're using 8 ounces of water per packet, just because you're using 2 packets before your race doesn't mean you have to move to 16 ounces of water. If you don't want to drink that much water before you go exercise, I mean, you could definitely have it as a thicker consistency and use that same, 8 ounces or maybe just a little bit more, maybe 10 or 12 ounces for those 2 packets. But Seth, to speak to the second part of Eric's question, what was, the effect of taking your gels or your sugar based sports drink on the course? What effect is that going to have on UCAN?
so I think if you're having UCAN before, and the problem with having it is that it's okay, but it's going to help you survive, but it's not going to keep you as even and stable as if you had that dose of UCAN. And so some people will experience that spike when they're having a gel. If UCAN is still in your system, it might help avoid that low blood sugar feeling. But when you spike your blood sugar from that gel, you're gonna inhibit that ability to really burn your own fat, which is what increases as your duration increases and intensity increases during that marathon. So if you can, a lot of people buy a hydro flask. It's a 5-ounce flask. Some of them put them in their back pocket, and they put a packet in there and concentrate it and drink it. I had one woman. She just ran a marathon, and she had, as Varn was talking about, she actually woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, had a vanilla protein enhanced UCAN. Then on her way to the race, she told me she had another vanilla protein enhanced UCAN. And then she told me 45 minutes before the race starts, she had 2 pomegranate blueberries packets before the race started, 45 minutes before. So she had the 2 vanilla UCANs instead of a high carb breakfast. Sure. And so she had all those packets, and then she had 2 pomegranate blueberries before a marathon. And she told me that at mile 16.5, she had a small flask of another pomegranate blueberry. It took her through. She PR'd and qualified for a marathon again next year. So qualified for Boston next year. So that's what that was her experience. And a lot of people are finding that if they have 2 packets before, if they're around a sub 3:30 or sub 4-hour marathon, usually around mile 16 or 17 is when they have their that dose of UCAN to take them through the end. And that a lot of these people are also training with UCAN so they've been using it for around 3 or 4 months before a marathon. So they've really tapped into what they need for a longer run when they're doing those 20-mile runs on a Sunday.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was wondering if and that kind of answered the question earlier as well. Yeah, I'm generally a sub 3 hour marathoner, and I'm looking to find the optimal time. Should I take it on the course that it will be put to good use? And quite honestly, I feel I most of the time just normal fueling. I feel pretty great through like the 17 to 20, like uh, the normal length of time that most people probably feel okay until that 20 mile area. And so that's why I'm wondering, yeah, if I take it, should I take it around the halfway mark, or is it better to take it that 16 to 17 mile mark where it's going to be, I just want to take it where it's going to be doing me the most good, I guess, for through the rest of the race.
Yeah, I think if you have 2 packets of UCAN before the race, I think you'll have to experiment, but anywhere between mile probably 14 and 17. Actually, you're a fast marathon runner. So why don't you, I would probably have it around, mile 14 or 15 actually.
Okay,
Because
great.
those last 11 miles, you're going to be running much faster than someone else, I think, who's probably pushing more the 4 hour point.
Okay,
So that's
great.
the general idea, Eric. So and I want to address your second question, but while we're on this topic, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I believe it's Liesel. Was asking, what about honey stinger chews or waffles to supplement? So Seth, you can go ahead and address that, but I think it's very similar to what we were just talking about with Eric, right? Even if it's honey, the body still recognizes glucose or sugar is sugar, and it's still going to result in a spike in blood sugar. And, it's not ideal to take, immediately or within, 45 minutes of taking UCAN because it'll somewhat negate that effect. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean the honey stingers. We've had a lot of people who had been using honey stingers, to try to get them through, that a kind of a 4 hour workout they would have them through. And the big thing is that it's really this ability to tap into your own fat and experience what it's like to really burn your own body fat while your blood sugar is stable. So these things might taste good in between, but they're causing that spike in energy, and you're going to burn that sugar first, and you're going to at some point need to take it in. You might get really hungry after the workout. So I try to avoid these sugars, and it's also from a health perspective. You don't want to, you don't need to have high blood sugar to exercise.
So, Liesel, in ideal world, you wouldn't have to take it. Now, if you're in a situation like Eric was talking about, where you're going to take the UCAN before and you don't really want to carry it with you, then at least what's going to happen with the UCAN is hopefully it'll keep you stable and even through the first half of your race. And then if the stingers or the waffles, the chews are what you want to carry with you, it's okay to use those to get you through the second half of the race. But we would really recommend in your training to try to wean yourself off of those. And again, I think we talked about this earlier, but a lot of that feeling of needing that sugar rush or that kick is really more of a mental feeling because it's just what you're used to, as compared to what your body actually needs. So I think if you train with it and start to wean yourself off of it, you'll find that you really won't need it as much. But if you only have one packet of UCAN that you're taking before, say, a marathon, and one packet may not be enough to fuel you the entire marathon. So you will need some. You may need some additional fuel, and if gels or honey stingers is the most convenient for you to carry, then it's okay. Just try to wait for as long as you can. Don't take it right after taking UCAN because then you're sort of gonna waste the effect. But Eric, the second question that you asked was would you take UCAN during a high intensity effort? And expound upon that a little bit, and I want to have Seth touch on that.
Yeah, I guess I mean it was somewhat answered a bit because I was thinking of it more like during like a marathon race or something like that. But it actually, I've thought about it differently here while I was sitting here. So does does intensity, I guess, have an effect on the ability of UCAN to sustain it? So if I'm going out for an easy long run, let's say, then you can does it provide the same effect to my body as it would if I took it and I was doing like mile repeats or something like that on the track? Should I take more of it if I'm doing higher intensity, or does it kind of just regulate the same?
So the big thing is that it does regulate very similarly because we have a lot of people who do CrossFit workouts. They do speed workouts, even 30-minute speed workouts. They're doing track repeats. I mean, I personally use UCAN for 50-yard and 100-yard sprint workouts. I'll do 20 100-yard sprints over the course of an hour, and I'll have a packet before, and and it'll sustain me the entire time. And it's because even high intensity workouts, upregulate and allow you to burn fat. And so you'll probably be burning higher levels of fat during those workouts. I mean, we were discussing that guy Lance Leo with UCAN. He was burning 53% fat. And the big thing is you're sparing that muscle glycogen so your muscles don't get depleted. And we have a lot of people using UCAN. This is Lance Leo's, what he was shown here. If you could look on mile 10.9, with the heat, he's only burning 12.7. At 10.9 with UCAN, he's burning 53% fat. And that's the remarkable thing, is that even at higher intensities, when you're at high intensity workout and you have too much sugar in the blood, your muscle cells are going to soak that up rapidly, and that's what's going to cause your blood sugar to get low because your muscles are sucking it up. But if you're using your own fat stores and your muscle cell is getting fed fatty acids from breaking down fat, you're not going your body's going to get that signal, oh, I don't need to burn as much glucose, so you're not going to get that lower blood sugar. But the key to really high intensity workouts is sustaining your blood sugar, and many people are finding that they're keeping their blood sugar steady through a CrossFit workout, a high intensity training, high intensity strength training, or those track repeats, and it's working really well. I mean, some people find they need a higher dose, but that more depends on the duration and if the intensity does increase dramatically. But I've found for myself, having a packet before an hour of 20 100-yard sprints does me just fine. Sometimes I add a half a scoop of protein powder before, and that's because that's my usually a morning workout. But I think that's intense. That's really what happens during intensity, and that's why even for a marathon, some people we have some people that do a 2:21 marathon. They'll have 2 packets before, and that's all they'll need, and they'll have maximum power output. We've had people measuring their power output. Actually, we had a bunch of elite level cyclists that using UCAN in the first 2 weeks, their fat burning went up, and their power output, watts per hour they measured, also went up. And that's because we were discussing earlier that UCAN, we've had some evidence that UCAN's helping the body reduce lactate levels. So you're preventing that fatigue, which is extremely important, especially during sprint workouts where lactic acid is what really builds up, especially during those 400-yard repeats.
Great, that's great to know. Thank you.
And Varun, I just want to emphasize for everyone that for those people that are running a marathon, having 2 packets before and then finding that time where you're going to want to have that 3rd packet is really key. And that's anywhere between, it's roughly around between mile 15 and 17 for most people, so that they can finish strong through mile 26. And it's also good mentally to know that you can have that UCAN around mile 15 to 16. And it's really to experiment, see how long 2 packets lasts you, and then you'll be able to figure out when you want that next dose to carry you through the end of the marathon.
Eric, great stuff. Appreciate your questions, and thanks a lot for the feedback.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, one quick question. Is this presentation downloadable anywhere?
Sure thing. We're going to everybody who's here is going to get a follow up with the link to listen to the entire thing, either later tonight or tomorrow. So this will definitely be available to listen to after the fact for sure.
Great, thank you.
Sure thing. Let's get to David's question. David wanted to just simple question, Seth. Will freezing a premixed bottle of UCAN the night before a long effort affect the integrity? So he's giving an example during an Ironman. Can he freeze a premixed bottle the night before and have it on the bike so that it's thawed midway through the bike?
No, that's brilliant. The one thing you don't want to do is heat it, but people make popsicles with it, and it's really great because it'll stay cold. So great thinking there.
Yeah, from a taste standpoint, for those of you who've used it, it's a heck of a lot better. Tastes a heck of a lot better when it's cold. So, David, definitely something we have a lot of our athletes who are doing those extremely long efforts do, especially as we're getting into the summer months where sometimes keeping it cold is a challenge. Freezing it overnight and then having it thaw and melt by the time you're on the bike is a perfect strategy. I wanted to bring Dawn on. Dawn had, Seth, a little bit of a used UCAN for 70.3, did great during the swim and the bike, had a little bit of trouble during the run portion, and want to see if we can troubleshoot a little bit what may have happened with Don, and might be valuable for some other folks to hear as well. Let's see if we can get Don on here with us. Don, you there? Hey, Don, are you with us? All right, I'm not sure if we can hear Don, but Don, I'm keeping your mic open, so if you can
Can you
figure it
hear me
out.
now?
We sure
Yes, we
can.
can.
Go
Can you hear
ahead,
me
Don.
now?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I just got finished doing wildflower, and I had some goals in mind, and I used UCAN, and I talked to Verum last week. We had a long conversation, and I took one of the protein powders before. I ate some oatmeal for breakfast. My wave didn't start till 9. I ate one of the protein packets before, and then I mixed 3 of the berry packets in one water bottle, and I drank them while I was on the bike. Finishing the last one probably about 30 minutes before I finished the bike. I had a really strong bike. Matter of fact, it was my best bike. I finished my bike in about 3 hours, which I was very stoked about. But then I never did recover for the run, and I had a 6-ounce UCAN that I drank about halfway through. But I never had my legs, and I had a very poor run, and I just felt like I bombed and didn't have any energy for the run. And so I'm wondering if I used the product correctly, if I should have eaten more food. I felt like I should have done a 6:30 time, and I wound up doing 7:04. So I was kind of disappointed with my time, but I was not disappointed with my effort. So does that make sense?
Right.
Go ahead, Seth.
I was just going to say, so the question is could we just go back? What did you have for breakfast again? It was just a bowl of oatmeal?
Yeah, I had 2 packets of oatmeal. Normally, before I started using UCAN, I was trying to stay away from the sugar. I would eat a bunch of bananas, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So I just had 2 packets of oatmeal, and I had actually an English muffin with peanut butter. And that was about at 7. At 8 o'clock, I drank my first dose of UCAN, and at 9, I got in the water.
Okay. And then how did you have the UCAN? So then did you have a packet before the swim? Is that what you did? And then started sipping on it on the bike?
That's what I did. That's correct. I actually used 1 packet of the protein, like the post-workout drink. There's protein in it. I had that before, one of those, before my event. And then I put 3 packets in 1 bottle of water and drank a third every hour while on the bike.
So did you have it all at once on the bike, or you sipped on it? I missed that.
No,
so
I
Seth,
drank it
sorry, Don.
one third.
I think he might be having a little bit of trouble hearing you. So I was just gonna to help him out here. He had said he had mixed 3 packets in a bottle on the bike and had 1/3 of the serving. What would you say, Don? About every hour, you had 1/3 of your bike bottle.
Yes,
So he had Seth. He had it about
that's
every
correct.
hour. Had 3 packets mixed up and finished his final serving 30 minutes before the run, and then and then Don, you had you said a 6 ounces. Was it a full packet of UCAN that you consumed about halfway? About halfway into the run.
No, it was actually just 1 scoop
Just 1 scoop.
for
Okay.
6 ounces. So it was, yes.
And you said you consumed it about halfway into the run. What was what level of time? What time was that at? Was that about an hour into the run? Was that an hour and a half?
That was about an hour into the run.
An hour
So
into the run.
maybe an hour. Yeah, about an hour into the run.
So
So
Seth, just to work backwards, he had a full packet 30 minutes before the run, and then he consumed a little bit more an hour into the run. So there was roughly a 90-minute gap from the time he had his last serving on the bike to the time that he consumed more on the run.
and this is 70.3.
Right.
It's a 70.
Yes.
So I think that the first thing is that depending on the kind of shape you were in and the fatigue, you might have needed a higher dose off the bike, and you may have needed a higher, a closer dose, um, rather than waiting 90 minutes before that run, and that could have been because maybe your intensity was much higher on the bike than you were used to because you're on a great bike. I'm not sure. Um, the other big thing is that if your muscle glycogen wasn't you didn't have enough muscle glycogen because maybe um, eating less the day before or the like, that sometimes affects someone during a 70.3 where there's not enough stored carbohydrate. I'm not sure which. Sometimes I think about what someone has the day before on how it affects their performance the next day. So sometimes not what happens that day, but also what's going on the day before.
So, Don, I would say a big thing is, you mentioned that you surprised yourself with how good your effort was on the bike. So, clearly you were really getting after it on the bike, and maybe because of that, it would have behooved you. Obviously these are all things you understand in retrospect, and these are things that you sort of will play around with as I know when we spoke last week, you had just started using the product a couple weeks ago, so it might have been something that with the benefit of a full training cycle you would have figured out, or you would have seen that maybe on the run, you needed to get that dosage a little bit closer. So that could have also been one thing that was happening. It could have been that because you powered through the bike so well that you really burned through it a little bit quicker, and it could have been beneficial to take that 30 minutes into the run rather than an hour. It's so I guess and then the other thing too is I don't know if you were drinking any water or if you were consuming electrolytes. That may have been something that it could have also been a hydration issue instead of a fuel
It
issue.
wasn't hydration. I was consuming noon,
Okay.
and I was plenty hydrated. Hydration was really good.
Yeah, so I think the main thing is that you may have needed some of your doses closer together. The other thing is you may have needed a higher dose, um, um, and had it a little closer together, especially if you're new to the product. Sometimes when people are new to the product, they need a higher dose more frequently, and as they get used to it, they need more of a serving every 90 minutes to 2 hours, like we were discussing. So it might take a little bit, just a little bit more experimenting during your training to get the right what's going to work best for you. But you can feel free to email me, or we can chat over the phone as you're experimenting over the next week, and troubleshoot some of this stuff. If you give me some feedback on how your training sessions are going too, I can give you some insight.
Okay. All right, and I felt like it would have been perfect if I had done an Olympic distance. I mean, I really felt good on the bike, man. I had energy like I'd never had on the bike before at those later stages, especially the last 10 miles up at Wildflower, pretty tough. So I was surprised that I didn't have any legs left. So maybe I just burned through it. I'm very lean.
Yeah, so you may have needed just a higher dose a little bit more frequently as you were ending the bike going into the run, and you can try that out. So maybe double up your dose and see how that goes. And
Okay.
during especially now that you're going to get some time to train with it and simulate your race experience during your training, you'll really be able to dial in how the race goes.
Right. Okay. I also dropped about 4 pounds to run the race too. So just to show you. But I recovered pretty well. So, all right. Well, thank you guys, and I'm going to continue trying the product because I think it's good. I didn't have any of the stomach problems I had with the sugar-based drinks and stuff. So, I'm hoping that this is a real solution for me, and I think it will be. So,
Great.
thanks.
My pleasure. Please email me. You can set up a call. That would be great to kind of follow up and help you through your initial stages of getting used to UCAN. That's what we love to do.
All
Thanks,
right,
Don.
great. I
Appreciate it.
appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot.
I
Good to hear
appreciate
from you.
Verum spending so much time with me last week. Spent like an hour and a half on the phone with me, setting up a plan, and it worked almost. Not quite there, but we will be.
Don, we're gonna make that go from almost to huge success for the next time. So don't worry, we're gonna get it right. And thanks for sticking with us. Glad you tried it. Appreciate the feedback, and we're gonna get it right.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thanks.
take care. So we're pushing about an hour and a half now, and it looks like most of the questions that have come in have been answered. Seth, let's just review a couple just a quick summary before we sign off for the night. And if there are any last minute questions, please feel free to shoot them at us in the chat, and we'll definitely answer them. But Seth, overall, in summary, what are some of the prime times that you really recommend using UCAN to feel the best effect?
So I think it's definitely 30 minutes prior to a workout, especially whether it's a high intensity hour run or a longer duration exercise. One packet's good for roughly 2 hours. If you're going to go with our tubs, roughly 1.5 scoop is a packet. So that's the first thing. And really, for exercise over 2 hours, for all those folks there that are doing longer distances, start off with a packet every 90 minutes. But as with Don's experience, if you're used to fueling with sugars, you're going to need a higher dose more frequently in the beginning, or you're going to need to slowly wean yourself off those sugars and kind of bring them along with you and use less and less as you have more training sessions. Best way to start off is to have a before an hour and a half workout. For those endurance folks, if you're doing speed workouts, 30 minutes, it's still, that UCAN before is perfect to keep you steady and get through those workouts, because it's this UCAN feeling. It's going to make you feel very steady and even and able to push that intensity. If those folks that want to recover, you can always take our plain UCAN, add it to protein powder, or you can use our protein enhanced version for recovery to keep your blood sugar steady and allow your body to really utilize protein for structural reasons rather than getting burned for fuel. We have so many people who are just now noticing that they can simply have a packet of UCAN with 8 to 12 ounces of water in between lunch and dinner, keep their blood sugar steady throughout the afternoon instead of reaching for a third cup of coffee or having a granola bar at work that might spike their blood sugar and cause them to overeat at dinner. So UCAN is going to keep your blood sugar steady, and it's going to curb your hunger going into dinner so you're not going to overeat. And that's so key. And that's why 3 o'clock is the ultimate time to have UCAN besides workouts, because it's going to allow you to make it through the afternoon. And these breakfast shakes that people are making, where they're adding spinach or avocado or peanut butter or some extra protein powder, it's a triple threat shake. You have UCAN in there to help curb hunger in the brain and keep your blood sugar steady, protein powder in there to help curb the hunger in the stomach and help your body get adequate amino acids for muscle and cellular health. And then the fat in there is going to help coat your stretch receptors. We're discussing all the anti-inflammatory aspects of healthy fats to help recovery. So that breakfast shake is so key, even on workout days that might be later in the day. Keeping your blood sugar steady throughout the day will allow you to go into that later night workout with adequate energy. The main reason people kind of don't get those workouts in is they're usually tired or they're hungry, and we want to use UCAN as a tool during the day, so you go into a late night workout with the same energy you had earlier in the day. So that's what we got, Varun.
Awesome, guys. So thanks everybody. A great group tonight. A lot of fantastic questions. Some great feedback as well. These things are as good as the people we have in the audience participating. So we love that and we appreciate that. One final time, I'll just give out the discount code as well. That's going to be good through the end of the night. So take advantage of that tonight if you'd like. If you're due for another batch of UCAN, and if we've given you some tips on how to use it better after the session, we hope we've done that, and hopefully this next time around you'll really be getting even better effect from the UCAN with some understanding of some of the strategies to use it and for the feedback from others. So again, that code which you'll see in the chat is UCAN Learn for 15% off, and you can just enter that in at our store, generationucan.com/store. With that, we thank everybody. You all have Seth's email. It's ucanrd@ucanco.com. You see that again at the chat. You'll get a follow-up email from me as well with the recording to the webinar. So, feel free to reach out to either of us. We're very big on education. It is a product that, as you've seen, we've been talking here for an hour and 40 minutes almost. Does require a little bit of education to understand. So, we're here to make sure that it's as big of a success as possible for you. So please don't hesitate to use either of us as a resource. And with that being said, thanks a lot. We appreciate everyone for joining us, and have a great night. Thank you.